Welcome to the Daily Globe. Please subscribe and hit the bell icon for more breaking updates. The global economy is bracing for a Supreme Court showdown, one that could send tremors through every corner of the financial world. Investors, policymakers, and business leaders are all on edge, watching closely as the highest court in the United States prepares to weigh in on a case with truly global consequences. The outcome could shake financial markets worldwide, triggering volatility not just on Wall Street, but in stock exchanges and trading floors from London to Tokyo. At the heart of the case is President Trump's sweeping tariff program, a policy that redefined America's approach to international trade and now faces its ultimate legal test before the Supreme Court. The stakes are enormous. A potential government liability nearing $1 trillion. That's a sum so vast, it could upend government budgets, corporate balance sheets, and even the stability of the global financial system. This isn't just about trade policy. It's about the very limits of presidential power, the checks and balances of American democracy, and the future of global commerce as we know it. If the court rules against the administration, the U.S. could be forced to refund every dollar collected under these tariffs. That would send shockwaves through supply chains, government finances, and international relations, with ripple effects felt by businesses and consumers alike. The outcome will set a precedent for executive authority, potentially reshaping the rules of international trade and the balance of power for decades to come. In this chapter, we'll trace the origins of Trump's tariffs, break down the complex legal battle, and explore the possible fallout for businesses, workers, and everyday consumers. Who stands to gain from a $1 trillion refund? Could some industries or companies see windfalls while others face new uncertainties? And who faces the greatest risks? For many, the stakes are personal. Jobs, livelihoods, and the future of entire communities hang in the balance. What does it mean for you, your family, and your financial future? The ripple effects could touch everything from the price of goods to the stability of your job. As the Supreme Court prepares to decide, the world is watching, bracing for a decision that could redefine the economic landscape for generations. Understanding how we got here, and what's at stake, is crucial to preparing for what comes next in this unprecedented economic moment. To grasp today's crisis, we need to revisit Trump's America First tariff strategy. Trump's tariffs aimed to protect U.S. industries by making imports more expensive, hoping to boost domestic manufacturing and jobs. This marked a sharp break from decades of free trade policy. The administration imposed tariffs on steel, aluminum, and a vast array of Chinese goods, citing national security and emergency powers. The result? A global trade war, with retaliatory tariffs disrupting supply chains and raising costs for American businesses and consumers. Some U.S. industries benefited, but many others, especially those relying on imported parts, faced higher costs and uncertainty. A controversial exclusion process allowed some companies to avoid tariffs, fueling accusations of unfairness and arbitrary enforcement. Over $1 trillion worth of imports secured exemptions, raising questions about the policy's consistency and effectiveness. These issues set the stage for the legal challenges now before the Supreme Court. From the very beginning, Trump's sweeping tariff program encountered intense and immediate legal opposition from a wide range of critics. Thousands of importers, representing industries from electronics to agriculture, filed lawsuits. They argued that the administration had overstepped its authority by using emergency powers to impose broad, long-term tariffs, measures they insisted should be decided by Congress, not the president alone. In a series of high-profile cases, two federal courts sided with the importers, ruling that many of the tariffs were illegal and that the president had exceeded the limits of executive power set by law. The Trump administration quickly appealed these decisions, urging the Supreme Court to step in without delay. They warned that undoing the tariffs could unleash economic chaos, disrupt markets, and undermine American industries. Government lawyers argue that reversing the tariffs would not only destabilize key industries, but could also threaten national security by weakening America's position in global trade negotiations. Now the Supreme Court faces a pivotal choice: whether to take up the case and weigh in on the limits of presidential power over trade, a decision expected in the coming weeks. If the court agrees to hear the case, its ruling could either cement broad executive authority over trade policy or set a historic limit, potentially forcing the government to issue the largest refunds in U.S. history to affected businesses. The stakes are enormous, not just for the presidency and Congress, but for the entire global economy, as markets and trading partners watch closely. The outcome will define the boundaries of executive authority for years, shaping how future presidents wield power in times of economic uncertainty. All eyes are now on the Supreme Court as it prepares to weigh this unprecedented challenge, one that could reshape the balance of power in Washington for a generation. The legal battle is sharply drawn. The Trump administration insists the president needs broad authority to impose tariffs for national security and economic stability. They warn that undoing the tariffs would cause economic chaos and a fiscal disaster for the U.S. Treasury. Even if there were procedural missteps, they argue, the consequences of reversal are too severe. Importers counter that the administration abused emergency powers, bypassing Congress to enact sweeping long-term tariffs. They argue the law was misapplied, the process was arbitrary, and the government must follow the rules, even if the refund is massive. For them, it's a matter of principle. Illegally collected tariffs must be returned. The Supreme Court must decide whether to prioritize executive flexibility or the rule of law. The outcome will set a powerful precedent for future trade policy. The trillion-dollar refund isn't just a headline, it's a real estimate of what the government could owe if the tariffs are struck down. This staggering figure has sent shockwaves through both financial and political circles, raising questions about the true cost of trade policy decisions made in recent years. This liability covers all tariffs collected under the challenged provisions, plus future collections through mid-2026. That means every dollar paid by importers since the tariffs were enacted, and every dollar that would be paid until a final decision, could be subject to refund, making the potential payout even larger than most people realize. Thousands of U.S. companies, from small importers to retail giants, would be eligible for refunds, potentially transforming their finances overnight. For some, it could mean a much-needed lifeline after years of higher costs. For others, it could spark new investments or expansion plans. But the process would be a logistical nightmare, requiring detailed claims and years of paperwork. Companies would need to meticulously document every tariff payment, and government agencies would face an unprecedented administrative burden to verify and process the flood of refund requests. Law firms are already advising clients to prepare documentation in case the court rules in their favor. Legal teams are strategizing, gathering evidence, and building cases to ensure their clients don't miss out on potential refunds. For the government, a trillion-dollar payout would blow a hole in the federal budget, possibly forcing new debt or spending cuts. The ripple effects could impact everything from infrastructure projects to social programs, as lawmakers scramble to address the sudden shortfall. The administration argues this fiscal shock would destabilize the country, regardless of the legal merits. Officials warn that such a massive refund could undermine economic stability and erode public trust in government finances. The scale of the refund is central to the Supreme Court's deliberations. Justices are weighing not only the legal arguments but also the far-reaching economic and political consequences of their decision. The financial consequences could be felt for years across the economy, affecting businesses, workers, and government programs alike. The outcome of this case could reshape the landscape of American trade and fiscal policy for a generation. Striking down the tariffs would create winners and losers across the U.S. economy. Manufacturers relying on imports, like automakers and tech firms, would see costs drop and profits rise, potentially passing savings to consumers. Protected industries such as steel and aluminum would face renewed foreign competition, shrinking margins, and possible job losses. Tech giants like Apple and Dell would benefit from simpler, cheaper supply chains, but new targeted measures could soon challenge them again. For consumers, lower prices on imported goods would boost purchasing power, acting like a tax cut. However, job losses in protected sectors and fiscal strain from the refund could have long-term effects on communities and public services. The overall impact would be complex, with gains for some and pain for others. The decision's ripple effects will reshape the economic landscape. Even as the Supreme Court weighs the old tariffs, the Trump administration is launching a new trade offensive, this time targeting semiconductors. The proposed one-to-one policy would force companies to buy a US-made chip for every foreign chip they use, aiming to reshore the supply chain. The move targets America's reliance on foreign chips, especially from Taiwan, despite billions already invested in domestic production. Tech giants would face higher costs and supply headaches, while US chipmakers like Intel and Micron would see a surge in demand. Suppliers of chip-making equipment would also benefit, while fabless firms like Nvidia would need to shift orders to US plants. The policy is a high-stakes gamble to reshape a $700 billion global market and secure America's tech future. The semiconductor battle is just beginning, with massive implications for the entire industry. Legal and business experts are watching the Supreme Court case with intense interest. A ruling against the administration would set a landmark precedent, reining in presidential trade powers and increasing judicial oversight. Financial analysts see both risks and opportunities. A $1 trillion refund could boost import-heavy companies, but protected industries face downgrades and disruption. Business leaders hope for relief from unpredictable tariffs, while protected sectors warn of job losses and foreign competition. Lawmakers are split. Some demand congressional control over trade, others defend the tariffs as vital for national security. The White House remains officially silent, but the stakes are clear. The political fallout will be significant no matter the outcome. The decision will echo through boardrooms, factories, and Capitol Hill. America stands at a crossroads as the Supreme Court weighs the future of Trump's tariffs. The decision will shape global trade, the balance of power in Washington, and the fate of entire industries. A win for the administration cements executive dominance in trade. A loss triggers a historic refund and redefines presidential limits. Consumers, workers, and businesses all have a stake in the outcome, which could mean lower prices, job shifts, and market upheaval. The case forces a national debate: free trade or protectionism, executive power or congressional oversight. Watch for the court's decision, industry reactions, and political fallout in the months ahead. This is more than a legal battle. It's about the rules that govern our economy and our future. The world is watching, and the consequences will be felt for years to come.